Hello everyone. So on June 8th of this year, 2023, promoting the German release of his latest manga, Choujin X, Sui Ishida, author and illustrator of the aforementioned title and the critically acclaimed Tokyo Ghoul series, gave a very interesting interview regarding his creative process, where he got to share some layered insight worth delving into. The interviewer asked a few questions surrounding the world differences in world building compared to before, ideas as to where the story is leading towards, and if there's a general ending in sight, already pre-established, methods and tools he uses daily to bring to life his artistic intent, which I'm sure the drawing buffs will understand more than I have, what inspires him to come up with ideas, and of course the reasoning for the irregular release schedule, which was more or less in line with our own assumptions on the matter. The overall takeaway was that the mangaka wanted to simplify most of the aspects of the plot and fictional society we learn about in Choujin. He seems more concerned this time around in getting the visual language right, his drawings, in order to find a style that feels distinct, rather than overcomplicating the narrative, presenting the series in a more straightforward fashion. One curious detail we learned, for example, was that humanity in this fictional setting is unified in one singular country, where many races coexist, and there's no linguistic system in place, but instead a common tongue. The diversity and history still intact, but ultimately only two types of race/species roam the earth: human and Choujin. A good counterpoint to this, to better illustrate his explanation, is the world set in Tokyo Ghoul, where society is portrayed as an exact reflection of our own, except our history and events are slightly altered to accommodate the existence of the ghouls. Germany gets mentioned, so does the United States, but the main narrative takes place in Japan, mostly in Tokyo. Another aspect that personally excited me was the author mentioning there is some overall story progression laid out. Although, ask most writers about it and they'll usually tell you, the fictional characters they craft onto the page can gain a life of their own and sometimes take the plot into unexpected places. It seems Sui Ishida isn't against taking the same kind of alternative paths and bump into surprising developments as well, which can sometimes be a good thing creatively. I don't think we've ever got such an intimate outlook on his work ethic or work hours, or even his creative process. That and the ways he spends his free time beyond crafting each chapter. But I think what surprised me the most, and surprised most people, was knowing the kind of headspace Ishida-sensei is currently at artistically. How he, as a person, perceives the finalized version compared to the feedback he gets from fans. During the course of the interview, the author didn't seem to remember ever mentioning feeling pressure during the many years developing Tokyo Ghoul when the subject was brought up. Strange, isn't it? Considering how vocal he was in the past, not long after wrapping serialization, about his struggle in keeping the quality of the story and visuals consistent. Although, note that the interviewer equated that struggle to feeling pressured instead to succeed. The thing is, I don't think wanting this series to be successful was what Ishida-sensei had in mind when he mentioned he felt pressure doing the work. I think it had less to do with pressure and more to do with personal grievances and burnout. That being said, it did open a window for a fascinating subject on the matter, considering what he had to say next. But the relationship between an author and pressure, I believe it's a profound topic, so I thought about it in my own way. As a premise, I don't really consider Tokyo Ghoul a success. For me, success is when I feel that I've drawn something well. Upon reflection, I don't really demand that it be well received by society or liked by many people. So success for me is whether I can praise myself for it or not. And when I think about it further, I think I struggle more with engaging with my readership. Honestly, I don't have a clear idea of the type of people who enjoy reading my manga. If I think too much about it, I find myself trying to cater more and more to the readership, and that affects my drawings, making them seem strange. Therefore, I demand self-praise first and foremost. Anything beyond that is nice, and I think thank you. That's why the only thing I can do is face my own obstacles, and I believe that's the greatest pressure I face. I haven't really overcome this pressure until now, so when I draw manga, whether it's school or Choujin, I face the same obstacles and pressure. If what I draw after overcoming those obstacles pleases people, I'm happy. I think that's when I can establish a connection with the readers for the first time. I must admit, this piece of information shared by the author struck a chord with me, more than it probably would if I wasn't also artistically compromised in my own life. I can't tell you how many times I feel torn by the things I create, how harsh I am on myself, and how difficult it is for me to get something out of my head and onto the page, making sure it translates that original vision as clearly as I humanly can. Whether it's making videos or writing stories of my own, which has been a passion of mine for a long time, I can't help having a smile on my face when other people praise praise my work, although in contrast, not being fully satisfied with the result, wanting consistently to improve and perfect aspects I believe can be improved upon in order to feel proud and, at the very least, satisfied with the finished product. It's a quality of mine I can't get rid of. I don't find it successful or consider it to be the best version of what it can be, only by keeping in consideration the positive words or criticism given by others. I also need to be able to look at it and believe that the work I've put into meets the standards I've set for myself. Of course, I know this can be detrimental in its own right, as there's no such thing as meeting perfection, and something being close to perfect is just as subjective as anything, so it does help when a great number of people on the outside who know nothing about you, have no personal bias towards you, take a look at your work or your art and still respond with a positive outlook or establish a strong emotional connection with it. Impossible for you to predict on your own. It does help ease up the burden, but it still doesn't take away the fact you still feel a part of you could have done better, could still do better. That's precisely why you keep telling new stories, making videos for your channel, because you wish to do better and be better at what you do and enjoy doing it to a certain extent. Something is only successful as long as you feel you mostly achieved what you yourself set out to do, isn't it? It does have to correspond to your own expectations in some level at the end of the day. And how many writers and artists you've known of haven't felt that way? I can't really tell if by the end of his Tokyo Ghoul rerun, Sui Ishida indeed didn't feel like the fans' reaction had any effect, positive or negative, in his own process. Regardless, I, like many, enjoyed and continue to respect what he accomplished. It doesn't mean it's devoid of criticism just because I can empathize, but at the same time, we're only human, and we do falter. We get ourselves trapped in our own pressure and insecurities, and we find it difficult to escape at some point. I personally believe art should be judged separately from the author, the way it's presented. But I also think it's important to, once in a while, remember this. A real group of people put their time and effort behind the books you enjoy, the films you experience, the music you lose yourself into, amongst others, just so you can put aside just for a minute the real hardships of the world and your personal life. Thank you all for watching. As always, I hope you find your own enjoyment watching this video. I'll be leaving a link of the interview translated in English down in the description if you're interested to read it. Hope you're staying safe and doing well. Ciao. Mata ne.